Greetings and welcome to Georgian Crossroads. This is Byrne Power, and I'm coming to you from Tbilisi, Georgia, on a nice overcast summer morning. We just had a massive thunderstorm last night. It was quite nice. Chilled the air a bit. When I say chilled, it brought it down to the 80s. That's the 30s for those of you who speak in meters, which I do but don't. And anyway, so what we're going to do today is we are going to continue discussing our little trip up into the Caucasus, and we are going to go today. We're just going to try to get to Juta. Not that it's that difficult, but we're going to start in Snow again, the little village that we have used for our home base in the Caucasus, and we're going to drive along the road to Juta. I think this will just be interesting. The road itself, fine dirt road with bizarre sections, should be nice for this trip. Next time, we'll actually get to Juta. So this is the guest house I stayed in at Snow. This is not what Snow looks like. This is a more modern house, but I'll show you the village in a bit here. But the nice thing about this guest house, it was cheap, that's for sure, but it was also right next to this beautiful gorge area here. I am looking at something. It looks like a Santa Claus mask. I have to go down and look at it. And so we'll leave the Santa Claus mask right where we found it. Why not? So I decided to walk out a little ways. Here's a few of the local pigs. Psst, psst, psst. Hey, piggies. The pigs are just left to wander here in snow. Now, for those of you who do not understand farm animals, those are very small piglets. They aren't very big at all. They aren't well grown. A full-size pig can be almost bigger than I am, so it's a pretty incredible thing. So here's a field where people were planting things right next to the town cemetery at the edge of the village. And this is the kind of rock that they use to make fences out of here. And so, looking up ahead, it's all this scree that falls off the mountains. Now, look at that. There is a shrine up on the side of the hill. And this is not uncommon here. I believe it's for people who are priests or monks who are buried this way, but don't quote me on that. Maybe someone knows better than I do. There's another one on the other side of the valley, and as I look across, there's actually a small fortress up there, and there is a trail that I discovered right where that forest patch is up ahead that I was able to use to well, no, I didn't. I wanted to go. Next time I go up there, I'm going to walk up that trail to get up to the fortresses above the village. And out here you'll see a scarecrow or two. My kind of scarecrows, kind of strange and weird. Let me show you a photo of them. They don't have faces, which is great. Not that I mind faces on scarecrows, but the great thing about not having a face on the scarecrow is that it just conjures up some suggestion of humanity, but not like an exact replica. And in fact, the dolls that Georgians made, in fact, let me show you a photo, well, it's a drawing of one of the traditional Georgian dolls. This is what they used to make in the villages. And they would make these dolls that did not have faces. They would do special things with them. In one area, they would take the dolls and once a year they would throw them in the river, obviously a holdover to some ancient pagan custom. But I find that fascinating. Meanwhile, let's get on the other side of this little stream by using this walkway here. And you'll see there were several of these walkways over the stream. All of them about as primitive as this. It's like some logs with some gravel stomped into it, it looks like. But as we look up the valley, it's just very inviting. And this is what it looks like looking directly down. I walked back a little ways just so you could get the effect of staring down from this little bridge into the stream. I'm using the wide-angle lens, so it makes my feet look a million miles away. But looking back up the valley, this valley is so inviting. And I got about as far as that white stone there, but I want to walk much further back at some point in the future. I wanted to get to Juta on this trip. In fact, this is the evening before I went to Juta, but that's looking back at the village of snow. And now I've crossed to the other side. Oh no, what will I find? Well, what I found is that what looked like a white stone was not a white stone. It was, in fact, a carved monument to St. George. And he's on his horse, he has a sword. And St. George is the patron saint of Georgia, of which there is no direct connection. It's almost a historical accident that the country is called Georgia and George is the patron saint, because Georgia is not actually the name of the country. It's Sakartvelo, which means the land of the Kartvels. And but Georgia seems to be derived from the old Iranian word gurge or George, and it eventually became Georgia. And yeah, so pretty interesting. So I'm getting you a nice panoramic shot. And back up there near that rock is where there's a trail going up to the other fortresses, which I haven't shown you, and we just passed looking at the other shrine up on the hill. And in fact, here is an image of one of the shrines that I walked up to but didn't actually go much further than. And this was right next to that carving of St. George. But this was obviously a burial shrine of some sort. Whether the person is buried there or it's just a shrine, I wasn't sure. I would have to ask and find out. So let's drive through the village. And so this is more what the village looks like. My house was on the edge of the village, but you can see the stonework here. And all the fences are made of those slate-like rocks. I'm not sure exactly what kind. But interestingly enough, the Georgian houses do not open to the outside. They're always closed with a courtyard. You have to go inside to feel invited in. So there's always this walled-off sense, even from each other. That doesn't mean they don't see each other. They see each other all the time walking through the village. And this little green stand is actually, during the day, this is morning, is actually a little, we'll call it a convenience store. There's another one right next to it there, an actual general market, but I did not take photos of it this time. So we're driving out of the little village right now. This is most of the drive through the village, although there's another part of it. But you'll see up on our right there a tower, and that tower is the fortress built to protect people during the Middle Ages. And there's a good view of it. I'll show you some photos here of what it was like when I visited last September with my friends Silva and Honza from the Czech Republic. And it's great to visit this during the fall as well as the early fall. Don't come too late. Don't come in November. It'll be really snowed in. But this gives you an idea of what these fortresses are like. And these fortresses are all through the Caucasus. It's a fascinating aspect of life in the Caucasus, that there were these fortresses that people would actually, in some cases, they would take all their possessions in, and most valuable possessions, when the Mongols were coming, or the Turks, or the Persians, or whoever was attacking at this point. They would use these to hide in, or at least defend themselves. So now we're on the road to Juta. We're heading east in the Caucasus, and we are on the Snotskali River. Snotskali, or Snotskali, if you can't say the little k sound there. Skali means water. Snow is the name of the village. When you put an S on it, it becomes a possessive, so it's Snow's River, or water. And it goes through. This is connected to the river. It isn't exactly the river. It's more of a pond. But this is just a stop along the way. It's just a beautiful, beautiful valley. And this is another stop at a river. Well, river is probably too big. But as you look up the valley, you say to yourself, wouldn't it be a wonderful place to take a horse ride? And indeed, someone else has thought of that for you. So evidently, you can get in touch with someone, take a ride off into that valley, or anywhere. It looks wonderful. And that, my friends, is Mount Kazbek, which we could not see in our trip to Gergeti, which was right behind us in Gergeti. But here, you can actually see it now. And as we pan over, we will see, indeed, the horses that you can take a ride on. And wouldn't that be wonderful to do? This was around July 1st. It was July 1st, actually, when I took this little trip to Juta. And it would be a good place to go. There are little hamlets along the way, not even the size of Snow, that have these old houses. I'm fascinated by these Caucasian villages. By the way, that's the true meaning of the word Caucasian, people who live in the Caucasus Mountains. And there's one section, unfortunately I didn't get a photo of it because it was just so bumpy along the way. Fortunately, I was borrowing a friend's SUV type car, so it was able to manage the bumps pretty well. I wouldn't come on this road necessarily with a really low riding car. But what we're about to do is drive up. This is the last section, about 10-15 minutes worth of driving, up to Juta. Now, unfortunately, when I focused my camera, I forgot to focus on the outside. Instead, I focused on the dashboard, which isn't very helpful. Nevertheless, so then what I said to myself is, well, what was outside was quite... it wasn't super crisp and clear like I'd like it to be, or as crisp as this camera will allow, or my skills will allow. So then what I said is, well, let's just blur it some more and make it more eerie. And yeah, look at the cliff that I'm riding next to. If I make a mistake, I'm going down. And, you're kind of hoping I don't go off the road here, aren't you? I mean, I was. So anyway, I'm kind of going to let us drive like this. And what I have done is I have taken a clear picture of this on the way down, and you can see it at the end of the next video of what I did in Juta and beyond, hiking in the mountains. So I'll save you the actual view of it for later. But meanwhile, we've got this suggestive, it suggests danger. I wasn't really afraid of it, although you'll notice I'm hugging the inside wall here. So Yeah, not listening to music, just concentrating on the road, hoping a car doesn't come. But what I suggest doing, as far as coming up here, is now the place I stayed in, the Januka Gardens, and there's 2 or 3 others, and there's actually a hotel that if you need more comfort in snow. I suggest we're going to pull over for a second because there's a vehicle coming. What I suggest doing is going through Airbnb, and you can rent it that way. What is it on another system? I think it was... Oh, it's through Booking.com too, but go through Airbnb.
That was a monk.
So, car passes, I pulled off safely, we're fine, we continue on our way. I did cut off about half of this trip for you, so you don't have to look at the blurry image all the time. But, since I feel like talking right now, I'm just going to let it play until we get to our next spot. But, so, book it through Airbnb. Now, what's funny is Airbnb has a little map. You won't see it unless you zoom in on the village of Snow, S-N-O, and then you will see it. Then what I suggest doing is coming... Now, here's the point. You can take a cab up to Stepan Saminda. There are cabs there that will take you up to Gergeti. But don't do that. I mean, you can also share a cab. You can also get a marshrutka, which is a kind of a minivan, which is kind of uncomfortable for the ride. But the shared cabs are kind of fast, and they're cheaper because you pick them up at someplace like the Droebit, and then you can drive up. But I suggest renting a car, really, and make sure you rent a car that's fairly high off the ground, not one that rides too closely, and then come and drive, because there's no way you're going to get up here. And even if you did get a cab to take you here, how would you get home? I mean, you could arrange it, but it's kind of crazy. So anyway, I stopped here because I saw Juta ahead of me, but off to the side, I thought it was in Switzerland. This reminds me of some valleys in Switzerland I've been to. But that is Juta up ahead. See, this is what the camera would have showed you if I had been focusing correctly. But, hey, we're going to live with it the way it is. But that's Juta up ahead. And it's a small city, about this, a city that's stretching it, town is stretching it, village, about the size of Snow, maybe a little smaller. But it actually has more facilities. So if you come up here during an actual summer, not this one, what you'll see is there is a small cafe there. There are places to stay there. It has more service facilities because it is the main hiking trail over this section of the Caucasus.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our trip. We're almost at Juta, but we're going to stop right now. And we will come back next week, or not next week, whenever I do this. Who knows when. We'll spend a few moments in Juta, and then we'll walk beyond it. There's a beautiful valley back there that I am fixated upon, lured to, drawn to. And we will just stroll through that valley. So come back with me next week here on Georgian Crossroads, Nakwamdis, and, well, thanks for hanging out with me.